December 13th, 2003. A small, dark hole in the ground near Tikrit, Iraq. Inside, a man once called the Lion of Baghdad sat covered in dirt, his beard long and gray. American soldiers opened the hatch, and a voice echoed from below. "My name is Saddam Hussein. I am the president of Iraq." It was the end of one of the most feared regimes in the modern Middle East, and the beginning of a story that would change the balance of power in the region forever. For more than 2 decades, Saddam Hussein ruled Iraq with an iron fist. He rose from poverty in a small village called Al-Auja near Tikrit to become one of the most powerful and brutal men in the world. In 1979, he officially took power, declaring himself president. Within days, he held a televised meeting accusing dozens of party members of treason. One by one, they were dragged from the room and executed. The message was clear. Saddam ruled through fear. Under his command, Iraq became a regional power. Oil money flowed, the military expanded, and Baghdad became a city of monuments, palaces, and propaganda. But Saddam's ambitions grew faster than his nation could sustain. In 1980, he launched a war against neighboring Iran, believing he could seize territory and secure dominance in the Gulf. The result was one of the longest and bloodiest wars of the 20th century, 8 years of slaughter that claimed more than 1 million lives. Chemical weapons, trench warfare, and human wave attacks turned the borderlands into a nightmare. Neither side won, but Saddam proclaimed victory and continued to rule with pride and paranoia. Then came 1990. Saddam's forces invaded Kuwait, a tiny oil-rich neighbor. He expected the world to stay silent. Instead, the United States and its allies responded with overwhelming force. The first Gulf War began. For 6 weeks, coalition bombers pounded Iraq's infrastructure. The retreating Iraqi army was annihilated on the highway of death. Saddam's power seemed broken. Yet, remarkably, he remained in control. The US stopped short of removing him, fearing Iraq would collapse into chaos if he fell. That decision would haunt the region for decades. The 1990s brought unimaginable suffering to ordinary Iraqis. United Nations sanctions devastated the economy. Food and medicine grew scarce. Hospitals lacked supplies. Hundreds of thousands of children died from preventable diseases. Yet Saddam continued building palaces while statues of his image covered the cities. His regime broadcast constant propaganda, portraying him as a father, a warrior, and the soul of Iraq. He surrounded himself with loyalists and spies, trusting no one completely. His paranoia became policy. After the September 11th attacks in 2001, Saddam's regime once again caught the world's attention. The United States government under President George W. Bush accused him of hiding weapons of mass destruction and supporting terrorism. Whether or not those accusations were true didn't matter anymore. The decision had been made. The invasion was coming. On March 20th, 2003, the sky over Baghdad exploded with fire. Operation Iraqi Freedom had begun. Missiles struck command centers and government buildings. The Iraqi army collapsed within weeks. Saddam's statues were pulled down by angry crowds as American tanks rolled into the capital. Television screens across the world showed Iraq's dictator disappearing from sight. The man who had once filled every corner of public life was suddenly gone. For months, the Americans searched. Rumors spread that Saddam had fled to Syria, that he was hiding in a desert bunker, or that he was already dead. Thousands of troops scoured villages across the Sunni Triangle. Every raid ended the same way, empty-handed. But in early December 2003, a crucial piece of intelligence surfaced. A man close to Saddam's family was captured, and under interrogation, he gave up a location, a farmhouse outside Tikrit. Just before midnight on December 13th, American forces launched Operation Red Dawn. The night was cold and silent as helicopters dropped soldiers around the target. They found 2 small huts and began searching. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then one soldier noticed a small patch of disturbed soil. Beneath it was a hidden hatch leading to a narrow underground chamber. When they opened it, a man's face appeared in the darkness. "My name is Saddam Hussein," he said. He carried a pistol but didn't fire it. The once mighty ruler of Iraq was pulled from the ground, dirty, exhausted, and broken. One soldier whispered, "We got him." News of his capture spread like wildfire. Across the world, people celebrated, while others stared in disbelief. Saddam Hussein, the man who had defied the world for decades, was now a prisoner. For months, he was held in U.S. custody, interrogated, and examined by psychologists and intelligence officers. He remained defiant, insisting he was still the lawful president of Iraq. When shown footage of his toppled statues, he smirked, but his power was gone. In 2005, Saddam was brought before an Iraqi court to face justice. The charges: crimes against humanity for the massacre of 148 Shia villagers in Dujail in 1982. He denied everything, shouting that the court had no authority. The trial was chaotic, part theater, part reckoning. But the evidence was overwhelming. Witnesses spoke of executions, torture, and entire families erased. Saddam's arrogance never faded, but even he seemed to sense the inevitable. On November 5, 2006, the court pronounced its sentence: death by hanging. The decision split Iraq. Some saw it as justice for decades of pain. Others feared it would deepen the divisions already tearing the country apart. In the early hours of December 30, 2006, as dawn approached, Saddam Hussein was led to the gallows in a Baghdad military compound. He refused to wear a hood and recited a prayer before the trapdoor opened. At 6:10 a.m., the dictator who had ruled Iraq with terror for nearly 24 years was dead. For a moment, it seemed Iraq could finally move forward, but the years that followed brought only more chaos. The country fractured along sectarian lines. Bombings, assassinations, and civil war consumed the streets. The fall of Saddam had removed a tyrant, but it also unleashed forces that had been trapped beneath his rule. In the vacuum, extremist groups like Al-Qaeda in Iraq and later ISIS rose from the ashes. For many Iraqis, the dream of freedom turned into another nightmare. Today, Saddam's legacy still casts a long shadow. His palaces stand in ruins, overgrown with weeds. The archives of his secret police reveal a system built on fear and silence. Some Iraqis remember him as a monster, others as a man who held the country together. History rarely paints in black and white, and Saddam's Iraq was a world of contradictions. Modern schools and hospitals alongside torture chambers and mass graves. Saddam once said, "History is written by those who win." But in Iraq, history is still being rewritten every day, not by the powerful, but by survivors, families, and new generations trying to rebuild what was lost. His fall reshaped not just Iraq, but the entire Middle East, setting off a chain of events that continued to define global politics. The final image of Saddam Hussein, disheveled, blinking in the flashlight's glare from inside a dirt hole, remains one of history's most powerful symbols. A man who ruled through fear, reduced to hiding underground. The empire of terror he built in blood and fire ended in silence. Yet his story is more than the rise and fall of a dictator. It is a warning of how absolute power corrupts absolutely, how nations built on fear eventually crumble, and how even the most powerful men cannot escape the judgment of history. The fall of Saddam Hussein marked the end of an era, but the scars he left behind still shape Iraq's identity. His name is whispered with both hatred and nostalgia, his face fading from murals but not from memory. For those who lived through his rule, his story is not just history, it is personal, a reminder of how fragile peace can be and how high the cost of tyranny truly is. And as the years pass, the question remains: did Iraq truly escape his shadow, or did the chaos that followed prove that sometimes the ghosts of the past never really die?